On today's show, I get to interview two powerhouse women in podcasting, the hosts of the wildly popular show That's So Retrograde. They are gurus in training and comedians at heart. I can't wait for you to meet them. Elizabeth Kott and Stephanie Simbari have been coined the ab fab of the new age, and with good reason. They effortlessly merge pop culture and wellness. They are best friends who seek out their most authentic selves, one mistake or mindful awakening at a time. We covered a ton of different topics in this interview. It was seriously so much fun. And what I loved most was their hilarious and real take on why it's important to stay just curious in the pursuit of our bigger purpose. And I also got to hear what inspired the vision behind their top podcast. Special treat on the podcast today. We have two powerhouse women in podcasting. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. We've never been announced like that.
Oh, well, I just came up with it right now. You can totally steal it. It's yours. It's yours for the taking.
Adopting that.
Thank you so much.
So it's been funny as I've been sharing with people that you were going to come on the show. Apparently, all my friends knew of you and are obsessed, and I have been living under a rock.
Well, welcome to the
So
universe.
I'm now into the light, yes, and I appreciate that. So I shared with you a little bit just about really the focus of the show being to inspire, encourage the next woman who's following her big dream and the thing she feels uniquely called to create. Because I think that as women, a lot of us, we feel these inspirations. We feel like we're meant for more, and then we buy into the belief that everyone else has it together. And everyone else knows what they're doing. But I don't know what it has been like on your journey. I still don't know what I'm doing 10 years into entrepreneurship. And I think it's really important to talk about that side of things.
Yeah.
And just the real version of the journey. Because it's easy to take a look at someone's Instagram and just think they have it all together. So I actually would love to hear the story. I don't know the full story of how you two met one another, how you became friends, and then I really want to hear like what inspired the podcast.
I just want to say before, I know Elizabeth is going to give our background. It's her favorite thing to do.
It is.
But I feel like that the myth busting, like that's like the first step of like doing anything is like this idea that anyone knows anything more than you is like the first myth to bust. Like, I feel like the more we become adults and we just try stuff, the more that we realize that, like, really nobody knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're just doing a really good job of pretending and exploring, and that's, like, what your only job is.
Exactly. Or being willing to figure it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I love that. That's so true.
Yeah.
Okay, take it away.
Oh,
let's hear the story.
I was put on the spot
I know
with
you
that.
totally were.
I just feel like you always take that question, and I'm always really happy the way that you say it.
Dazzle us.
You're welcome.
No pressure.
So it was a November Eve,
We are not sure.
We're not sure.
2012, 2011, 2012?
2013.
Was it before I moved to New York? After.
After.
2013.
Anyway, that's beside the
don't
point.
know.
Date
we
is
met
TBD.
through friends
Yeah,
at
it's been a lifetime of
a
times.
party, and it was really funny because Steph is a stand-up comedian. I come from a fashion background, and someone had introduced her as a stand-up comic, and I said, "Oh, I want to write with you." First thing out of my mouth, which is so funny because podcasting is like lazy writing. So we just kind of became instant friends because all of our friends were already friends. So it was just we were kind of integrated in with each other immediately, and then I had a company called Closet Rich, which was an online consignment company, but through that I kind of used that as a creative vessel to do a bunch of other things, like a clothing line. And I had been called to do an improv class and left that experience saying I want to write comedy videos promoting Closet Rich and dress everybody in the clothes from the website. And so I called upon Steph and two other of our girlfriends, and we ended up writing and producing and starring it. And it was just like the most fun creative project ever. And it just set a new tone for what creation could be and for what collaboration could be, and like this or better always. Like I want it to feel as good as this and have the product come out as phenomenal as it did. So that's sort of was the first taste of us working together. And then cut to an opportunity to do a podcast, and Stephanie was just kind of like the natural fit to do that. And so we created it purely based off of our own curiosities and our craving for this type of information around wellness and self-care that at the time, believe it or not, 4.5 years ago was very sparse. Yeah. And so we set out to have conversations around the things that we were interested in that we didn't have answers to. Yeah. And we were very curious and didn't really come from a place of knowing. It was more of a place of needing, and now it's been really fun to evolve into having formed our own knowledge base.
It's kind of funny because we're like, oh, we're going to do an astrology podcast, and then we like started and we're like, wait, we don't know anything about astrology.
Hold on.
So it was like a very quick pivot from like trying to pretend to be experts to your point of like feeling like you need to know, and then just like surrendering into we're just explorers. And once we gave ourselves permission to not know something, it really opened the door to cultivate like somewhere to go.
Yeah. Yeah, we really like the concept of giving yourself permission to be the beginner. Yeah. And stepping into that on a daily basis takes a lot of pressure off.
Okay, that is so good. And I feel like right there, that's something that every single man, woman, you name it, needs to hear, because that ties into what we were starting to talk about too, with feeling like you have to have something together before you get started. And I think the podcast journey has taught me that too, is it really is a job of just being curious and giving a voice to your listeners about on things that they might be curious about too. Yeah. And I love, my favorite thing about your show is that you bring this hilarious side to it. You bring this lightheartedness to something that I think regardless of health and wellness or business, people oftentimes can make it so heavy and so serious. And life is not meant to be like that.
It's supposed to be fun.
It's supposed to be fun.
Why, like my whole life, and we just are like, we don't want to do things that are serious. We don't want to like, if it's not fun and you can't engage with it on like a playful level, you're not probably going to do it, or it's going to quickly become a job. Yeah. Nobody likes to work.
Yeah, it's so true.
If you have to work, which we do, make it into something that's fun for you.
I like to work.
Okay, well, nobody inside of me likes to work.
I was giggling.
None of my personality likes to work.
My husband hears that. Like to work. I was like, my husband would be just like shaking his head. He's
like,
but
you don't like to work on something that you don't think is engaging or fun.
Oh, of course not.
Yeah, that's my point. Yeah. I don't mean like no one likes to work. I mean no one likes to do those tasks that seem like they're pointless or they suck or whatever. Like
And to your point, too, about just being in that state of pure creation and allowing yourself to play and notice where collaborations feel really good and then those that don't feel so aligned. Was that something that took you a while to learn? The difference between a collaboration that felt good and have you ever had some that didn't?
I mean, I was fired from every job I ever had before I started my own business.
You were not.
Yeah. And like amazing. A epically awful, terrible, heartbreaking, learn all your life lessons very early type of way. Yeah. I had a very like cool, high-profile job in my early 20s, and when I was fired from that, I had associated my entire identity to that job. Yeah. What a beautiful lesson looking back that at almost 26 years old was when it felt like the rug was pulled out from under me, but I had to figure out who I was without my association to my work. Yeah. And because of that, it's been really interesting because to come back around to creating something from the ground up and having it be so truthful to my soul and sharing my deepest, all my deepest thoughts, my deepest curiosities, but then still being able to have a healthy separation from that and understand that like, here's what I'm putting out in the world, but it doesn't define me.
Yeah. And I think that freedom creatively is the sweet spot. And it does take a lot of us a lot longer. It took me a lot longer than 26 to really tap into that. But I think that's what a lot of people are probably seeing now as far as how your brand is evolving, even how ours is because it feels like that. So I have so many questions. I have so many questions about. So what has happened? The podcast, I mean, the first episode launched in like 2015. Yeah. What has happened since? Like, what are some of the highlights, the cool things that have happened since leaning into that project?
You like for the show itself?
Yeah, the show or just opportunities that have come to both of you because of it.
I feel like what's so cool about like doing what we're doing and being sort of in what we would call like purpose, I guess, is that as the show has grown, like we have grown through the show, and we've had this amazing opportunity to talk to so many people in, all areas of wellness.
Yeah.
I put this in quotes because I feel like that term has now turned into something so different, but really it's just self-care and spirituality and being a woman and being a fucking adult. Sorry, can I say that? I mean,
well, you just did.
Sorry.
We're going there. We're just going to go ahead and slap the explicit rating.
Sorry, I obviously can't do anything without dropping at least one F-bomb. But yeah, so it's kind of, we've grown through that because we've gotten to have these conversations with people who have been walking that walk for so long and are experts and do have like a very grounded and fortified point of view. And so I think for both of us personally, it's been so incredible. Like where we started, I think we both had an inkling of like, okay, these are the people that we could become if we like did the work. And I think we have stepped into new versions of ourselves because at some point I remember probably like a year in, maybe not even, we realized that we had to clean up our acts if we were going to be voices of this cleaner versions of. Now look, we still like to party, we still like to have fun. We're not like sober or anything like that, which you are, that's totally fine.
Curious and totally support it.
Sober curious.
And if we take breaks, so that's fine. But like, it's not like, oh, we completely changed our lives. But it's like certain habits that we had, certain beliefs that we had, certain relationships that we had, all those things had to sort of fall away if we really wanted to like step into our alignment. So for me, that's the greatest thing on like a selfish level is that your work can help you grow in that serious way. But also just to see the community, like it's crazy. I mean, when we first started, it was literally Elizabeth's dad was listening to it. Like no one, literally, he's been our number one fan since the beginning.
I love that so
it's
much.
Amazing. Like I'm so grateful that he was that voice being like, I think what you're doing is kind of cool. And now it's like so many people are listening and are being like, I'm you.
Yeah.
And that is so magical to me. That you can just speak your truth and it can be reflected in like the hearts and minds of other people.
Yeah.
That's wild.
And I think that happens when it's authentic. People can really sense when it is.
Yeah.
And something really miraculous to be riding the wave of and also just standing back and bearing witness to is both podcasting and the wellness industry, let's call it, has just made like a massive expansion in the time that we've been doing a podcast talking about that category.
It's so true.
So that's been I've had many moments where I've been in amazement to that,
like we didn't know
expansion of the both of those trends, and to be riding that journey with it. It's been. And also to stay firmly planted in our mission and what we're doing throughout that entire time has been really important to us and really special.
I do think that speaks to like listening to the call that whatever your call is, that you get to like do something else or more or whatever. It's like we had no idea in 2014 when we were like smoking weed on her patio talking about astrology and like podcasting, which was two things that were just like sort of just getting downloaded into the collective, that we were going to be riding such a big wave. And we did it. It was a leap of faith, which is if you're starting a wellness podcast now, it's not, which no shade, but just like
there's like models to look to of what to do and how to do it, and systems in place to support them. Whereas before, like this beautiful studio, so nothing like this, to our knowledge, we didn't have access to anything like that when we started. So it's been wild.
And I think it speaks to just the truth that for a lot of women waking up now to their bigger purpose, or just even that like nudge that there's something more. A lot of times it feels like, well, no one else is doing it. I don't have an example.
Do it.
Exactly. And that's the place to lean into.
Totally.
Is not to wait for someone else to go first, because oftentimes you don't even realize you're lining up to catch the next wave.
Anything that's ever been a thing started as not a thing first.
Yeah.
I love the book Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, where she talks about how like, because ideas kind of get implanted into all of us, and then it's up to us to sort of like run with it. And if you don't run with it, then someone else will.
When she talks about her book,
I know it's so spooky.
That is crazy to
me.
Actually,
just reread that chapter randomly like a little while ago. That's so funny.
Yeah. If you haven't read it, it's called Big Magic. We'll link it in the show notes, because that's a good one for anyone who's feeling that call to create. Because it's true. It's. She basically says these ideas are demanding to be birthed, and they'll find the vessel who's going to take action.
I think it's hard because like creativity is so like, is the word ephemeral? There's you can't access it other than inside of yourself. So it does take it takes a confidence to trust and believe that what you're feeling and thinking is worth giving attention to. Right. And it only becomes physical through you.
Right. Yeah. And I think I love how you talked back to your biggest breakthrough is seeing your own growth in the journey. I think that was the part that surprised me was I thought that it was all about creating the thing, but it was actually about becoming the person that was supposed to create the thing, and then trusting that even the next idea, the next evolution of what it would become would just be revealed when I was the person who was ready for that.
100%.
And that is a weird journey, especially for someone who I like control. I like to know where I'm going, but there's just really there's no surprises. There's no joy in that journey. There's no magic, really.
Right. It's nice to have systems in place and structure, but if you're able to trust in being your own structure, that's when some really cool stuff can happen. Big magic.
Big magic.
Also, I think I really do, this sounds so woo-woo and like my apologies, but I really do feel like you can't you can't receive the thing that you're supposed to like receive until you get into like the vibration of that thing. So you have to like do a lot of work to work up to that point, and then suddenly it starts to like align with you. But again, it goes back to just you.
I'm down with that whole conversation. We can have a whole offline conversation about that because it's so true. And I do think that was the piece I was missing. I was trying to find the path that would just take me to the end goal versus focusing on, well, what about me, my habits, my mindset? What about even my physical being and how I show up in the world? What's not aligning with that thing I want to create?
Totally.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's great to look at paths and have the structure like she's saying, but also like no one's ever been you before.
Yeah.
So there is no path for you because it's yours. So it's great to have mentors. It's great to have leaders and people that you can look to for advice. And like, but regardless, like you still have to weigh that advice inside of yourself. Does that feel right to you? You know, can they connect you with people that are aligned, or is that more for them? It's like you are the creator of it for yourself.
And if I might add to any of your listeners in a point of maybe transition or feeling like they can't see what's ahead. For me, I would say my entire 20s was I did a lot of.
What do you mean? You're only 27.
Right. Did a lot of different things. And it didn't really make sense. Like I had a really hard time saying my least favorite question was, what do you do?
Oh my goodness.
Because I was like doing a million things and like, how much time do you have? You know, like it was, and I felt almost like I just didn't feel comfortable with that of not being able to label what I did. That was weird. I wish that I could have lifted that stressor from me. But as I just kept following the call to my creative passions and to what made sense and to honoring the visions that I had and putting work towards them, it started to paint a picture. And I started to gain a lot of skills that I could have never seen or predicted would all apply to what I'm doing now. And it's okay to not know where you're going. I think just to keep checking in with yourself and doing the work that you have, whether it's a side hustle or it's your 9 to 5 or whatever that is, you're getting experience for what's coming next.
It's so true. Like there's been so many times in my life where I've looked back on doing comedy and I'm like, what was that for? Like it was so stressful and hard. And then suddenly I'm asked to do something else and I'm like, oh, my years of getting up in front of people and just talking are now serving me.
Like we're doing live shows. Like that's why we're here in Arizona and to, you know, and it feels so amazing to have a partner who has 10 years of stand-up comedy experience under her belt to do a live show with you. Like that is invaluable.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It's so true. Oh, we just had a moment. It was cute. It was real cute.
I love an accidental compliment.
I know. I wasn't fishing for that, but thank you. That's so true. And I do feel like one of the biggest lies is that we have to know who we're going to be when we grow up.
Yeah, what
like
is that?
That it has to be some label. And I grew up in the Midwest. That is like the conversation. Wisconsin.
I'm from Michigan.
No way.
Yeah.
No wonder I liked you.
Midwest people
love
to bond about that.
We do. It's like immediate friends. A lake, a cold beer, and you know that's about it.
It's
that's really
more
all
than
that there
any
is.
other region. People from the Midwest are just excited about knowing each other.
Yes,
it's
we
wild.
are. Another offline conversation we'll just have. We'll geek out over. But I think that contributed to some of that unrest that I felt when I started to sense I was meant for more, because I had the quote unquote dream job, the security, all the things, and it was it sucked the life out of me. It wasn't for me. And it also was part of my journey for a reason, for so many reasons. And it's interesting because it took me until my mid-30s to really start to break up with even that what I'm doing now will always be what I'm doing, and to actually just rest in the fact that I'll know if it's supposed to pivot.
It's like in relationship. Like you can't be 2 years ahead with something. You need to be in the moment, and are you good with it at the moment?
Yeah.
Because, I talk to a lot of women who are like, if they're just starting a relationship, they get really nervous that something's going to happen, or like mid-relationship, assessing like, is this the person? Is this the one? All of those things that happen that our mind does for us.
Right.
I feel like you have to be really grounded in the relationship with yourself, and then be in the grounded relationship with how you're spending your days.
Yeah, so good. Okay, so I want to find out a little bit more about like you individually, behind maybe what your listeners have learned about you. Maybe you've shared this kind of stuff on the show before, but
I'm sure whatever you're going to say, we've shared, because we've shared too much.
I mean, I've only listened to, like a handful of episodes, so I'll eventually get through them all. But one of my favorite questions to ask women, especially who are crushing it, is I think it's important to acknowledge that I
don't feel comfortable with the crushing it.
Crushing it?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we want to go with
what
does
crushing it mean?
That's very true. Who appear on the outside to be crushing it, right? To have this top podcast, to be in, I think it's women who are stepping into their light.
Okay, cool. I like that.
And
that's a good description.
It's funny because I actually don't really ever use the term crushing it. Do you ever find yourself using words that you hear other people say and you're like, that was weird.
That
like tasted weird.
Yeah, totally.
But I think it's more this rise of the feminine. There's women really stepping into their purpose, stepping into their power, and it looks a certain way from an outside perspective, right? And I think the biggest lie I told myself was that there would be a point where I didn't struggle anymore, or where I wasn't feeling challenged. And in fact, where the challenges actually get bigger, it comes along with the platform, or it comes along with the responsibility of doing big work and knowing yourself, having that self-awareness. So what's challenging you right now? Personally, professionally?
Myself. Doesn't it always go back to that? My own thoughts.
Yeah, amen. Relatable.
Yeah, I think it all, LA traffic. I mean, there's just something. Me ignoring my yoga membership for the past few weeks. I mean, there's the list.
We're gonna get real.
Yeah,
yeah. So when you say your own thoughts, what is like the recurring one that just will probably always be there? That you manage?
That I manage? I think that like feeling, there's like always going to be a concept of like that I've worked through a lot, and I definitely have lessened the depth of this, but like doing enough, like and what is enough, and like but I've worked through that in knowing what feels good and how I like to go to bed at night, and like how I like to feel accomplished with the day, and what I like to feel. I know the feeling of like I like to be through my emails. I like to understand what's
Thank God for that. So retrograde Elizabeth likes to be through her emails
with like the week ahead, and like understanding my schedule. So there's little tricks that I've been able to hack that manage my own sanity, but also help me feel like I'm on task, if that makes sense. That that keep that like, am I doing enough at bay? We're always exactly where we need to be.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good.
That reminder and that knowing of that is what helps those the demon thoughts.
Yeah. I think just that through line of enough is probably a common denominator for so many women. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Steph, what about you? What's challenging you right now?
For me, it's like, I guess it's like two things that I'm sort of working on. I mean, we're working on like 1,000 things, obviously, but for me right now, my biggest thing is like making space for myself. Like I feel like I have like a big personality and a lot of energy and a lot of emotion, and like I've been through a lot of times of like letting myself get overwhelmed just by like virtue of just being in this body.
Yeah.
And I'm learning as I get older to like cultivate time for just that, in order to like be better at showing up for this and be better at showing up for my other things that I have to do. And just like it's a challenge to have that discipline of like not being lazy with yourself, like whether it looks like meditation, whether it looks like quietness, whatever it looks like, it's different for everyone, but just the quality of making space, it also comes down to like shifting out of certain relationships, and really just spaciousness internally is really like my biggest like thing that I'm really focusing on, because I am single, which is we're fine.
Just saying, no. If there's any gentlemen listening.
I'm single. No, but I am. But in that I am in a place of acceptance and peace with that. But I also know that in order to like get a relationship that I find truly fulfilling, I need to have space for that. So I'm sort of like in this transition of doing things for the future of myself.
Yeah.
That's
good.
Yeah, like it's great that I can feel better in the present moment. That's like a happy byproduct of the space that I'm making. But it's really like, who do I want to be in 6 months? Like I'm over my old narrative of like it being hard. And it's funny, we talked about having a healing with Kylene, and she said that to me yesterday. She was like, you've had it hard for yourself emotionally, and you're just done with that. And I'm like, I am done with that, you know? Okay, she's fucking psychic and amazing. Yeah. But it was a nice also reflection of what my personal struggle has been. And I've beaten myself up about that. I've apologized to her a jillion times. I'm like, I'm sorry I'm like this. Just, it's a lot. And there's a great benefit to it because I'm like, so fun. But it's with great power comes great responsibility. And it's overwhelming sometimes. And I just want to feel more at ease in the flow of myself.
So good.
Yeah.
So relatable.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love how you call things relatable.
Very relatable. Well, this is basically just for me. I'm reflecting my own inner thoughts.
Perfect.
What feels fun for you right now?
I just got a new home and I'm renting. Okay.
That's how we know we're adults.
And I'm just like in a full design K-hole every second, obsessed. Fabric samples, designing a couch, slowly acquiring furniture, trying to figure out how to like landscape outdoor. Like, how does one do that? I don't know. To me, it's like you see like a
hire someone
plot of dirt. I'm trying not to. I'm trying to like try this out.
You moved one of those plants, right?
I moved all of them.
You moved all of them?
Uprooted all of the plants that that the landlord had planted. He told me I could. And now I have this like blank space. I don't do well with blank space. I'm much better with the confines of like, we've got this, what would you do with it? Yeah. So that it's a fun mental exercise. And it's just, I think coming from a fashion background, home is the level up, It's like, how are you going to like permanently style something? It's not just an outfit. Well, it's like you have to choose this outfit and you got to wear it for like a really long time. You have to be committed because like once you get a chair, you have that chair.
It's so true.
It feels
really
like
is.
It should be about something else. I'm like, and then you have that chair.
I know, that is not a metaphor.
Very
That's
deep.
Just, I mean, it's just stuff, And through that, through the show, we're very into feng shui. Yeah. And
I listened to one of the feng shui episodes.
That was life-changing.
It's so fascinating.
I'm so
into
all of that and color theory and what that does for mood. And so so I'm kind of like using this like aesthetic experience to tap deeper into the kinds of things we talk about on the show too.
Isn't it fun how like you kind of like moved away from the aesthetic to go inward and do the work, and now that you've like hit a new deeper level with yourself, you can go back to that, and it's so much more fun because it's like layered with meaning, but it's not the thing.
Ugh, amen. Yeah. It is
so cool.
Because the thing is, the things we love when we're little kids, I don't think those ever go away. Like, I wanted to be a fashion stylist. I wanted to be a radio host. And I wanted to be a children's book author and illustrator. So I'm just waiting on that.
Just working.
Final
one.
Are you drawing? Are we practicing our skills?
It's so funny because like all of those things just stick with you, and they can like you can turn your back to them, but they'll always find a new way to reveal themselves.
Interesting. Wow, you called it. You called your shot. Mine did not turn out that way at all.
I wanted to be an actress and a radio host and a poet.
See,
that's amazing.
We all are poets.
Yeah.
Take an InQ workshop and you're there.
Done. Okay.
There you go.
And then
I try to think of my comedy as my poetry.
Yeah, exactly. What about you?
What was the
What
question?
feels fun right now?
Just like living, man. No, but kind of, yeah. Like I'm letting myself go on dates, and like that feels cool. Like I feel excited about like who am I gonna date, and like not having this. I had this like serious like I need to find my husband like mentality, and it was so stressful and creating so much more loneliness because you can't do that. You know what I mean? That's not how life is.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, it's fun to like, I realized like by going on dates and just meeting people and socializing, you kind of get to like know yourself more. And like, I walk away from those dates and I'm like, I am great. Like, this is so fun. I'm learning about myself in the reflection of people who are just like kind and good to talk to.
Yeah.
So more of that is kind of where I'm at. Like, not like isolating at home or feeling hopeless around, because I feel like, you know, as we get older and we stay single, there's such a gnarly narrative around it. And all my friends are in relationships, or like a lot of them are, and like I'm so happy for them. But it can feel isolating and it can feel dark.
Yeah.
And so kind of like releasing that and just going into it with like a playful mentality is interesting. And like renegotiating how I feel around dating and sex and all of that stuff that I kind of like, you know, my behavior and my desires when I was in my 20s were way different.
Right.
You know, I was loosey-goosey. And Lucy. Yeah, just when you
It is, yeah.
do everything,
Actually,
you
in the
know,
dictionary.
and now it's like different, and it's not like I'm like slut-shaming myself or something. I just don't like to behave in that same way. So it was like a 2-year period of just like, how do I exist in this space in this new, responsible, authentic way without isolating? And I'm finally out of that. So it's like exciting to me to be playful.
It's so cool because I feel like you both really hit on back to the point too about just like your vibration and like the energy you bring. I think like all of it, inviting more fun in, being curious about what it looks like to bring that to dating or to business.
Totally.
Or even like creating the space, like the physical environment that you're going to be surrounded by. It ties into this whole conversation too of just like taking a moment to actually design the woman that you want to be and the woman that you want to live into.
Yeah, I love that.
When I was in my last apartment, I lived there for almost 9 years. And in February of last year, I called upon one of our friends who does space clearing. And his name's Mikey Dimitrovich, Edible Spirit. He's been on like 9 episodes of our show, but he's also a very dear friend of ours. And we went in through the space and we talked about what we want to happen there. And this is such an amazing exercise that anybody can do at any time, whether it's in their office or their home. And we were like, what are we going to do for the future self?
Yeah.
Because everything around there now felt like stale, and it just like, it wasn't reaching me where I was at. I had surpassed it, and I wanted to create the space for like where I wanted to be. So like when I was at the time when this happened, I really wasn't that financially stable. So, and all of these things, it was very intentional of like what we wanted to happen in this space. And just creating that, it supported everything that came through.
Yeah. I did a very similar thing with my clothing, like with my exterior.
Cool.
Again, whole other conversation, but I mean, I get it. I totally get everything you're saying.
And it's also like if you think negatively about something, like, okay, say that she was in her apartment and she was like, oh, I have to move. It's like, that's tension. Like, that's not going to open the door or like to something great. Or I'm like, dating sucks. And I'm like kicking my heels. It's like, yeah, you're just going to keep having shitty experiences. You're not going to attract a good thing. That's a real... I resisted that for so long. I like hated that notion that I was accountable for my experience. Like pissed me off.
And once you realize that, you can't go back.
You can't go back. It deeply
kinda
bothered me. I was like, you mean this is my fucking problem? Why? You know, I didn't want to take responsibility for it. And that is a good way to like kind of frame the vibrational conversation if you're not like into that languaging. Right. It's really just like change your attitude.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Okay, I want to switch gears and talk a little bit about the podcast because there's so many things about it that, again, you just bring this fresh approach to all things wellness, spirituality. I actually want to start by talking about, I want to know how you came up with the title. How did the title of That's So Retrograde come to you? Okay, I was hoping it would be, so thanks for fulfilling that.
Well, we knew we wanted our first episode to be about retrograde because at the time that was just kind of in the lexicon. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about that first episode and kind of planning it out. We were sitting in her kitchen at that messy table. I'll never forget. It was like 1 a.m.
Yeah.
It was just like the lights were really dim. Like I'll just never forget the like scene.
Yeah.
And Stephanie had said that's so retrograde, which was something she tweeted. And we were like, oh, that's the name of the episode.
Like something shitty happened and I was like, tweeted like hashtag that's so retrograde. I just made it up.
Yeah.
Because I was, you know what it was? I was living in Brooklyn for a little while and I kept saying that's so Brooklyn. So that's so just became like a way that to describe when something was like very of a certain
Very
way.
something.
Yeah,
very.
like, you know, when you can hear something is so Brooklyn, you're like, I get exactly what that is. It's like an artisanal coffee on a skateboard with a guy in Converse and a beard who has like a low-key body odor smell. Like, that's so Brooklyn.
That's so Brooklyn.
You know, and then sort of the same line of thinking went for that's so retrograde. You know, timing is off, your phone breaks, you can't reach your friend, you know, I don't know, something shitty happened. That's so retrograde.
Yeah.
But then kind of, and then, so we were like, that's the name of the episode, and then we both had like a 10-second pause, which was a full download, and we just looked at each other, we're like, that's the name of the show.
Like, without even needing to say it. Yeah.
And
I totally
then I
get
think
that.
like, yes, that's so retrograde has like that correlation with all those things you mentioned.
Yeah.
But I also think now it's like we've like rebranded it, and it's like that's so retrograde.
Yeah.
It's not like.
But you know what's so funny? I still say it. Like, I will have conversations and something funny will something retrograde-y, hold-ups, miscommunications, whatever. I'm like, oh, that's so retrograde. And people will be like, I don't know why you're saying the title of your show. And I'm like, the title of the show is from the saying.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Get it right.
I'm like, I'm sorry you think that I'm being self-referential, but I'm just saying that's literally retrograde.
Like, shameless plug.
Yeah.
But it really is.
Yeah.
No, it's so brilliant. And I feel like retrograde is one of those terms that has now become so much more mainstream beyond just people who are like tapped into spirituality.
People who don't follow astrology are like, it's because Mercury is retrograde. And they're just like,
cool.
What does that mean to you?
No, I kid you not. I was in the gym the other week, and I've like taken a massive break from working out, just being totally lazy. And this woman asked me to take a video of her. She was like, you know, very into like the videos of her working out. And I said, sure.
You to do it.
She asked me to take a video. I was like, hey girl, I got you. Like, I am a good Instagram wife. And then she offered to return the favor, and I declined because I said like, oh, I'm just not feeling it today. She goes, I know, Mercury in retrograde. And I was like, no, I think it has more to do with the fact that I've not been working out. Like, she was almost like giving me an out.
That's so retrograde.
Right? Okay, so for like the newbie who has no idea, maybe they're using it incorrectly. This is for my gym friend. Love to her. But what does it actually mean?
So retrograde is a planetary phenomenon that is when, correct me if I'm wrong, but okay, yeah, okay.
Oh wow, you're gonna have to catch the YouTube version of this.
Here we are in this is the sun. Okay, so here we are, these are the planets going around the sun, and they're also going like this at the same time, right? And they have their little timing and their little orbit and whatever. And then so when a planet goes retrograde, it keeps moving, but it stops turning.
Like turning on its axis. We're going to do the play-by-play for our audio listeners.
It's like this one's still doing this and this one's not. It's
so
just
you know
not.
when
It's
you're
not
in
maintaining.
a car and you're parked and the car moves
and it feels like you're moving.
That's what it is.
Yeah. So it's not actually going backwards, just not moving forwards.
Yeah.
And so it changes the energy of what the interplay of the planet is on. So when Mercury, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, just Jupiter. Okay, so Mercury, Venus, and Mars are the most strong planets that affect us on Earth in their retrograde because they're the closest to us. When then you have like the outer planets, Jupiter, Uranus, Pluto, Saturn, they affect people collectively, but it's not going to affect like the day-to-day.
Right.
So with the Mercury thing, it's like with things that we deal with like technology and travel and communication, it also has to do with what that planet is an archetype for. Mercury is the planet of communication. Every planet has like its archetypal identity, and Mercury is communication. So that's like what that's about. But then also there's the rewords.
Yeah. So we always.
Did that make any sense, by the way?
I just nodded.
Did I just go into like an astrology?
I'm gonna probably
spasm?
listen to it like 3 more
We
times.
also have like 6 episodes on it.
I know.
So we invite your listeners to check out any of our astrology focused episodes.
I mean, I got really into my
I know, that was good. I loved it.
demonstration, and then I started talking, and I was like, pull it back. No one knows what you're talking about.
The demo was great. Yeah, we're just like setting people up to listen to the podcast. So this is great. We're great.
A nice way also to look at it is the so the retrograde re.
Yeah.
And it's a nice time to reevaluate, reassess, reassure,
renegotiate,
revisit. So like it's all you're taking stock.
And so but the re's do have to do with the theme of the planet. This is why I was saying that, because like with Mercury, it's specifically communication and travel oriented. So those are all the themes that are going to come up generally. But then if you really want to break it down, you got to go in your own chart and see what planets are in what places, and you'll know specifically what parts of your life should be getting looked at. Right. Like astrology is just there to help you grow.
Yeah. So it probably didn't have anything to do with my shitty workout, is what you're saying.
No, but you know,
you're reevaluating your relationship to
exercise,
and there you go.
And other
she
planets
just gave me that out right away.
It's true, and the other planets are retrograde too. And that can affect, you know, whatever that is, like whatever your relationship is to exercise, whatever your energy levels are. Definitely. And also it's great that you gave yourself permission and you weren't being a shithead to yourself, forcing yourself to do something that was feeling bad.
True.
Because what? Of like a body judgment?
Yeah. No, I have a very healthy relationship with exercise.
That's amazing.
No, like,
that's good.
The thing with that is like from doing our show, it's like when it comes to working out, it's great. Yeah. But then if you don't feel like it, that's okay too.
Right.
And I think the thing that's unhealthy is the self-hatred that can sometimes be the byproduct of making those choices. When really, in actuality, you're just putting yourself first, which is the ultimate self-care.
So true.
Yeah.
And I just listened to the episode with Sophia, and I feel like she really, really touched on a lot of that. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, way beyond just understanding what retrograde actually means so that you can use that.
Sorry,
so
I'm
retrograde,
still in a spiral
no, not at all. I'm just really tying this back to what people can expect to hear on the podcast, because it is so good. Like, there's just so much depth to it, but in a way that is, it feels like you're listening to your girlfriends just having like a hilarious conversation of, hey, I don't understand what that means either, or I want to learn more about where my plant should be positioned in my home for maximum joy. And so tell our listeners a little bit about what you cover on the podcast, how you describe what people can expect when they listen to the show, and then of course just where they can find it.
Sure. So our show, I would say it's focused on wellness and self-care, which casts a wide net. Yeah. That's I think the best way to put it in a box would be all of the things in life, in the human experience, that help us feel good, and the different tools that we can educate on, so that all of our listeners can build a toolbox of their own. So we can make all of these different modalities feel accessible and not hard and seem fun, and people can receive the information in a way that's lighthearted and relatable, and that doesn't feel like we're preaching or there's one way to do it. Really, we just want to say there's no one size fits all. We just want to give you options to evolve and feel great.
Love that.
100%.
How is that?
I love it. I believe deeply that our vulnerability is our strength, and the more that we can share what's going on with us in the context of our conversations, the more that people can see, hear, feel themselves, and be empowered to take whatever steps they need to take to be more embodied and happy.
And we do that through having experts on of all kinds. And then we also, as you mentioned, like Sophia Bush, we have like random celebrity friends on who, you know, are able to talk about their own personal experiences in time in a safe place. And also usually when we're seeing them interviewed, it's like they're promoting something or they have 10 minutes and you're not really able to shine a spotlight on this side of life. So like the self-care and the humanness. So we really pride ourselves in giving an opportunity to like some of your favorite people. We have had like Sarah Silverman and Emma Roberts and Lance Bass and Ashley Tisdale and Jamie Sigler and, you know, just fun, random friends of ours who it's kind of fun to hear their take on what wellness and self-care is for them.
And like to your point of, you know, everything looks a certain way from the outside, and we idealize and idolize people for their public image. And it's so refreshing, I think, even on the inside, to hear people that we look at as successful being like, I have the exact same struggle.
Yeah. Oh, it's so true. It's so good.
We're all the same.
Yeah. Okay, final question.
Yeah.
We're big believers that, women supporting women is great, but it's got to be way more than a hashtag. So what is the biggest way that people can support you?
Listening to our show.
And if you like it, if you vibe with it, share it.
Yeah.
That's the fun thing. Like, the messaging we're putting out is all just for self-betterment and therefore betterment of the world around us and everyone's day-to-day experience. So the more people that have access to that information, we believe it's like a beautiful domino effect.
Amen to that. Well, thanks for being here.
Thanks for
having
having
us.
This was fun. This was so retrograde. No, that wasn't it.
Still retrograde. It's perfect.
Thank you.
Awesome.